Welcome to our symposium, Metabody, and it's a fuller title, but I don't have the slide up, so I can't remember all the words. Metabody, culture, movement, and technology is what I think I called it. Our Metabody is a project, a 5-year project, whose primary investigator, it's a large grant from the European Union. Primary investigator is Jaime del Val, a philosopher and metaformance artist from Spain, and he'll be our first speaker. He's the keynote speaker. And I'll let him explain Metabody to you and what that means, the philosophy behind it, and so forth. I just want to welcome you all, and on behalf of NYIT, welcome you to our symposium. There's food outside. Make sure you eat a lot of it, because I got a lot of it. And there's drink. I want to also call your attention to there are several events throughout the weekend. Jaime is going to do performances on Sunday night. We haven't Saturday night is already full, that performance, I think. But Sunday night will be an outdoor performance, possibly in Washington Square Park. We'll be tweeting that.
Saturday night actually is Monday, night will be in Washington Square Park.
Okay.
I think Saturday night will be somewhere else. Sunday.
Well, Sunday night.
Sunday.
Okay. So, if you're interested, give us your Twitter handle and keep a lookout for those things. I'll let Jaime talk more about that too. I want to thank the Dean of the School of Art, Sciences, and Communication for funding the food for this, and NYIT for providing the facilities. I guess the only person here who might talk to my dean is Gene, so tell him I said nice things about it. Okay, so our speakers in order will be Jaime, and he's the keynote speaker. His talk will be about half an hour. Then I'll be speaking for a shorter time. Then Francesca Ferrando, and then Yunus Tunca. And we all work with Jaime as part of the, he's the head of the grant project. We're all part of it. And Francesca is a philosopher from Italy originally, studied at Columbia and at Roma Tre, and Yunus is a philosopher as well, lives in Manhattan, originally from Turkey. Both of them are Nietzsche specialists. Then they branched out into technology and philosophy. They'll tell you a little bit more about themselves when they get up here. I'm Kevin LeGrander. I'll be speaking second. And I've been specializing in the crossover between philosophy, between technology and humanities for a long time. So, I don't want to talk anymore. I want to let Jaime take the stage.
So thanks so much, Kevin, for hosting, and NYIT for hosting the symposium. This is part of the Metabody Forum US-Canada, which we are doing already new in Montreal. We're now in New York, including Berkeley afterwards. So the forum, which happens every few months in mostly European cities, now also in this peninsula, has been both the gathering of the Metabody partners and also the public partners. The Metabody is quite dense. I will try to just go over some of the main aspects that we're trying to elaborate on in the project, both at the level of theory and of mostly also practices. So the main kind of theme of the Metabody Forum in US-Canada is, as you can kind of aware, is reversing cybernetics, clearing control. So there's a strong concern here about how is it that surveillance and control operate, going deep into its ecological foundations, and how can we provide different kinds of responses to that from the particular approach of Metabody. So, as Kevin said, it's a collaborative project. We are now in the second year. We still have over 3 years to go. Let me just show you this little video, which can give you a hint of some of the other issues. 90. So, as you think, meta in Metabody is not as in metaphysics in terms of coming after, or like reading the body behind. It's quite concrete. It's about reinventing the body in terms of something which is always expanded, which is always in motion, which is always in becoming. So it's very linked to the notion of metahumanism that Stefan Saltner and myself have been developing for years, which This is an important kind of starting point. This is part of the network. These are the organizers. It's a very large network. These are the associated partners, amongst which IIT. So let's move a little bit forward. So as you've seen, there's an intention to not just theorize and develop tools, but to integrate these embodied technologies in an architectural dimension. We want to build a fully interactive architecture, which means one that is constantly transforming its overall physical structure, not just projections and sound and so on and so forth. How can we build a completely new type of space, which is never fully acquiring a definite form, which is always challenging your perception, and a use of affordance, which is not just telling you one way to interact with it, infinite potential ways of interacting. Also the notion of a space which is dynamic to the extent that it is never pre-existing you, so totally working against the traditional notion of Cartesian space, that res extensa, that which is already given and measurable. How can we generate a notion of space which is always emerging from you? This is one particular kind of assumption, is that neither space nor time have an ontological dimension, only movement, and then particular spatialities or temporalities may emerge from different movement predictions. It's this the idea in which we would like to work at a speculative level in the project. So this might be one of the endless iterations of this architecture. In network also, an embodied network, a network which focuses only on the non-verbal aspects of communication, which are mostly ignored or flattened and treated in a highly reductionist way in current information technologies. This is a big theme that we try to expand a tiny bit in it. So, embodied media response to global surveillance structure. Why? Well, my idea, my proposal is that the deepest ontological level of control there is the fact that movement which worlds emerge, is discretized, is reduced to a number of quantifiable discrete elements. One would have to argue here, of course, some people might say, well, reality is already discrete. I take the opposite view. I don't think reality is not rather discrete. There are specific, highly sophisticated perceptual processes through which particular domains of movement of the world may become discretized or discretizable, or in any way reducible to quantifiable and traceable units, which is what what information society is doing all the time. It's capturing domains of reality into quantifiable units. The issue of the quantifiable versus the qualitative is very important, especially when we understand the qualitative as define the possibility of quantification. How can we try to mobilize technologies which are focusing more on the qualitative aspects of experience, of expression, of perception, those elements which define actually quantification? How can we enact a different kind of technologies of communication, of relational economies? Of course, this is a very huge question. It demands doing, let's say, 60 years of cybernetics, 300 years of Cartesianism, and even perhaps 2,500 years of Platonism. So the task is not one that can be fulfilled in 5 years, for sure. But we'll try to start asking some questions. So this reductive approach to movement, how movement is constantly, we are now surrounded by billions of sensors on the planet. These sensors are actually the capture points of how movement at large, not just human movement of things, the Internet of Things. There are more things connected to the Internet than people nowadays, and there will be more and more. There are incredible projects like the one by Cisco Systems, which is called Planetary Scale, which aims to put billions of sensors on the scale of the planet. Who knows what? Different kinds of implementation. So we are immersed in billions of sensors, which are the capture point that transposes or discretizes the movements of bodies into the discrete signals of the digital, which are again then choreographed to the trillions of algorithms that are choreographing the So how that process happens, how in every measurement of a movement you are leaving out infinite other possibilities of measurement. Like, for example, there are many projects nowadays, thousands of projects dealing with biometric approaches to movement recognition, expression recognition, facial recognition. Well, many of these, in fact, almost all the ones I know, assume a mechanistic, mechanic approach to movement, understanding movement in terms of having mostly a fixed point of observation, which is most common, say, Kinect, or sophisticated ones. This is a very particular approach to understanding movement. It comes from a mechanic tradition. We could take that to Aristotle, but mechanics, mechanism made it even worse by understanding movement as a purely external property of matter. So it's like the reverse of what I was saying, using movement as the ontological substrate, the mechanism as the opposite. Things are substrate, identities are substrate, platonic ontology. Then movement is an accident, something which is external property of the thing itself, which makes it difficult to understand how movements generate thingness at all, especially in terms of how perception is organized in such a way that we may start to understand something. What does it take for us to assume an external position of a subject who distances itself from something else so that you see that thing as an object, which is understood with affordance as a totality, which is totally distinct. We have assumed this kind of petition, but I think it has a specific history, a history which is perceptual, which is about organizations of the bodies. And I will talk a little bit, and very quickly, about some aspects of this history. Well, one important point was, of course, the birth of geometry and how it became very abstract on things. But an even more significant point was this one, the birth of perspectival vision in the Renaissance. Now, this is a perspectival machine. This is an engraving by Albrecht Dürer. You see, this is a machine for fixation. It's a very rigid and very supraline choreography of vision that was enacted by this machine. You see here, the painter has to fix this vision. It with regard to a frame and a grid, and only thereby this ontological split between an object and a subject, which is this fixed gaze, which is representing kind of the Cartesian god Avan, this was 200 or 300 years before. Only there is this manual vision alignment that allows for a representational framework of measurement to be enacted. So this, for me, is a crucial ontological moment in the engineering of perception, which has enacted this ontological split between subject and object. Before, it was done in philosophy, actually, which is also in terms of how concepts have an embodied, a material, a kinetic kind of background. So, of course, this relates to many other forms of organizations that come up. You can go back to ancient theater in Greece, how this phenomenal perceptual machine of the Greek theater, which for me had the important function of capturing capturing Dionysus, taming Dionysus, Dionysian choruses that were nomadic in the polis, in the Greek polis. The first ones were built in Athens in the 6th century.
Stone structure later. Theater discovered in the 531st century.
So this already enacts many of the elements of perceptual alignment that we're still immersed in terms of linear, circular, and dualistic splits. Of course, this becomes more and more atomized, and this is the state in which we are now, which is even going much further with ubiquitous interfaces, biometrics, and sensors that are going down and down to the nanoscale of matter, but which still are brought into this picture, this framing of quantification, the rationalization of vision. So, for me, it's important to understand how particular framework we have now, and in which information, the mathematical theory of information, comes up in 1948, as well as cybernetics at the same time, has to do, is, I think, fundamentally grounded in a particular perceptual division means an organization of the senses, which firstly coming from Aristotle with this absurd split of the five senses, which he already performed, which, I mean, no one nowadays in cognitive sciences would, I think, agree with the idea that we have five senses, we have many more, and there is no consensus as to how many senses there are. There is, however, a consensus mostly about the fact that all the senses operate cross-modally. They never operate separated from one another. So this whole tradition, the Aristotelian tradition of five separate senses, would be completely wrong from the point of view of modern cognitive science. Now, still that already generated a particular kind of organization of the senses, which then, with the alignments of Euclidean geometry, especially with the perspectival vision of the Renaissance, became much more hierarchized, putting vision right at the top, and then a very particular kind of vision, a very organized and superaligned kind of vision. So, for me, it's very important to analyze these processes of perceptual engineering, and then how can we do away with them, or maybe disalign them into something a little bit different, something a little bit less rigidly hierarchized, which is what Metabody is trying to enact in different ways. Let's move forward a little bit. So I'll talk about some of the projects we are doing. Morphogenesis, which is it's actually an instrument, but it's perceived as an installation, which is one in which through sensors, which are one mnemonics, arometers, you interact with the digital meshes, 3D architectures, which are connected around you. But these meshes are not representing any kind of Cartesian space. You cannot actually navigate that space. It's constantly deforming, emerging from your movement, never fixing itself into an extensive space you can navigate. So the interaction is designed so as to avoid this idea of a space you can navigate, and rather intensify the idea of a space that is emerging and transforming constantly in relation to your movements. Microsexes is a different project, which is about placing small surveillance cameras, very small cameras, in different places of the body. What you see here is what the camera sees. So the body is seeing itself through a very radically transposed kind of vision. The eyes are no longer in the face, they are disseminated in the skin. They are no longer with this rigidity, this fixation of the perspectival vision. They are moving constantly. They have a blurry macro vision. It's looking at itself in a very short distance. So very interesting things happen in that process, which apparently some of these paradigms and parameters of perspectival vision are not holding together anymore. This is something that one has to experience. So I call these metaformances, which means rather than a performance for someone to see, which is still a representational thing, it's something that the body itself must experience. So sometimes when I do this, it's more about my own experience, and then how can I involve someone in that experience. That's the reason why we do this tomorrow, Saturday night, in an intimate environment at home. I will do the metaformances tomorrow in an intimate environment at home, where people can encounter me one by one, so that I will mediate to have to try to facilitate that person has an experience which is not this kind of distancing that we mostly assume when we're sitting and just looking at something in the cinema or in television or in the theater. So trying to avoid and bridge through that spectacular divine, and have that person also experience a similar kind of perceptual shift and transformation which I am also experiencing. Those are very difficult tasks because we have such a multi-layered, internalized structuring of our senses, of our splits, the way we have choreographed our relations with the world. We have assumed that those divisions so deeply, and more nowadays, where everybody has this little Windows perspective strategies to try to do that. I've done these in the streets, different kinds of versions, projecting this micro landscapes of the body, microsexes, these amorphous, always amorphous, never quite definable landscapes of a moving body in buildings or sky. Different kinds of settings, one-to-one, at homes, in homes, home performances, microsex work. Okay, the Metahuman sphere is another more recent project, which is where we're trying both of the elements which you've seen before, amorphogenesis, which is about this ongoing emergence of the amorphous, which is a little bit of an attempt to defy Platonic ontologies, even Aristotelian ontologies, where form still is very crucial. I'm trying to say, well, no, form is a perceptual condition. It's not a condition of reality. It's a condition of a particular way of trying to fix vision so that you perceive something not as a movement, but as a pattern, which is what I think is foundational to control. So if in disciplinary societies, one could say that control or power was more about repetition of patterns, since the growth of cybernetics, as you very well identified, is much more about modulating networks that are capable of self-adapting themselves to the movements of bodies. So it's a very radical shift that Wiener, Shannon, and others enact in the middle of the 20th century as to how power can operate, control, no longer in terms of just repeating existing patterns, but how is it that control tries to anticipate and capture the emergent, what is not yet there, the virtual, perhaps. Some people even call it post-cybernetic control, in terms of not just trying to adapt to the actual, but anticipate the virtual, the potential consumer, the potential terrorist, all these attempts to capture and preempt what is not yet. So, amorphogenesis for me is an attempt to question the role of form in that process of a pattern, because still in modulating control networks, I think it's crucial that I don't think they could operate if it is not in terms of patterning processes. It's about constantly translating and capturing movement into modulating patterns, so still patterns, not fixed, modulating that patterns nonetheless. How could we try to defy those processes through something that is exceeding the notion of pattern altogether? Maybe it's not possible, and I hope to think that it is. I'm trying to work amorphogenesis, microsexes, and then these projects have been around for years. In Metabody, they are more tending towards this physicalization of an architecture that works on those principles. So how can we imagine this as a physical space which is mutating constantly? So therefore, always define your perceptual capacities in terms of inviting them to discover new potentialities, rather than assuming the space is given and its rigid possibilities. Metahuman sphere, of course, is playing with the ideas like mostly developed and elaborated by Laban, that the movement of the body can be synthesized into geometrical forms. I'm trying to define the reductive approach of geometry, and I'm not particular fan of geometry. It's fine, of course, but there are many ways of interestingly working with geometry in very complex manner. And of course, one could argue that here there are complex geometries, but still, with regard to, let's say, aesthetics of control society, the reductive tendency of architecture being designed in terms of straight lines or smooth surfaces, as some would argue, like Luciana Parisi, that is the condition of current post-cybernetic control aesthetics, the smooth surfaces of topological design, that would be again another way of smoothing the complexities of rhythms, of movements, of body interactions into computable surfaces. Well, that's another interesting. So I'm trying to do a little bit, go a little bit away from any kind of geometrical reduction, whether it's about linear or smooth curvilinear reductions. We're playing at the moment at very analog levels. So this is a prototype we did last July, Christian and myself, in which this metahuman sphere, which is deforming as you move, it's connected to your body just through elastic. But of course, this might be done in a next phase. Well, some partners of the body that the metabolic are working on robotic structures, on structure-mediated actuators and sensors and so on. So this may have very different iterations, both digitally mediated and very analog. So these I take out of the suite, and I also project the microsexes then from inside or outside. The voice is being electronically processed. So this becomes like the strange translucent skin of an alien creature. You become that alien creature when you're doing all of this. That's what I feel happening to me.
This is what would be happening on Sunday night.
Possibly, yes. A new iteration, a more recent. You will see now that this has undergone many iterations, many different kinds of wearables have been trying. Some of them ready-made, some of them this is what a little much. So these are ready-made, but which I won't tell you yet what they are usually used for, but I deform them in this manner. Workshops with them, you're invited. We might do this kind on Monday. We'll see what end up doing. So we are using these wearables, these wearable architectures in endless iterations and combinations with the other projects to understand how to generate this notion of a dynamic space. So just focusing on the quality, because the danger is trying to just approach from a highly sophisticated digital process, apart from it being a little bit militant, is that you have to focus, devote too much time to solving technical problems rather than just focusing on how it feels, what relation it has to it. How do we involve people? Like here in this one, which happened in Weimar a month ago, it was there, audience people were being introduced into the ones that were connected. So what kind of metabody can you generate through different ways of inviting people to participate? Which is maybe the kind of experience we would like to offer in the future architecture. Where you facilitate experiences for people rather than have them sit in this room. This is the most recent one. This is from last week in Duke. The meta dress, the metahumanist. This is from Montreal last week. So this idea of something that is that at least one could, although with difficulty, try to assign a form to it, and which is constantly shifting and mutating, whereby the most important thing is how your own perception shifts towards what I would call a distributed equality. So for me, it's never enough to say, okay, we're, as post-humans, we are and have always been part of distributed agencies, even though liberal subjects, also part of that collective formation of agencies, or alignments of bodies, empires have been collective alignments of bodies. For me, it's never enough to say, okay, we're part of these distributed agencies, but what kind of distributed agencies would we want? What kind of distributed ecologies would we like to be part of? My approach to this is that while we, I think, happen to be in distributed agencies and ecologies which have very strong alignments, normative alignments, dominant alignments, well, how could one infuse a little bit more of indeterminism in those fields? That's my approach. How can one facilitate? I like Epicurus' notion of the Klein, those micro deviations, the infinitesimal deviations, the atoms, which novelty in the world has. It's Epicurus, the notion of Klein. How can one induce these Kleinaments, these micro deviations in the movements, so that a little bit more indeterminism, when I go to Anaximander's topic, more upper, a bit more indeterminism in the world happens, so that relations are not just the prescribed ones, but are open to myriads of possibilities. that's the kind of ecology I would like to foster, which is never predefined. You start from given relations which you experience as more or less rigidly established, and from those you try to facilitate this subtle micro-deviations with a little bit more indeterminacy in the picture. So indeterminacy is a creative force rather than a negative one. We have many other projects in the Metabody project going on now. I'm extensively talk about all of them. Neurological affects is one in which I propose to, I believe we live in a very regular and effective capitalism in which emotions are constantly being choreographed, and there are thousands of projects nowadays trying to reduce our interactions to the 5 universal emotions described by Ekman: fear, happiness, anger, and so on. Which I think is a model of social control. So they have a productive power, these models. They lead us more or less as we behave more and more according to what an interface demands from us, what an emoticon lets us express. They have a productive character. An emoticon is, I think, never representing the affect that your face will represent. It has itself a particular kind of affect, which is also somewhat indeterminate, but nevertheless very homogeneous. Imagine the difference between the infinite expressions of 1 billion faces and these billion people just using the face of the emoticon, which is a single sort of actual differentials that are missing there. I think are very clear. So how to mobilize affects, Spinoza terms, which are irreducible to the known emotional labels, affects being forces that affect and affect us. It could be infinite registers. How can one do that before trying to preempt them, capture them, label them, and make them quantified? How can one generate having to be reduced to quantified? So these are some of the concerns we think.